Hi everyone, it's Vicky here and welcome to an art channel video. We will have lots of fun playing with basic mixed media techniques. If you are a beginner, you can easily follow the steps to make the exact project, or you can switch up color combinations and even focal points to create something completely new. Instead of working directly on a journal, I'm going to work on a loose paper. This is 8 by 8, so I'm going to work on a slightly smaller page that I can stick later on top of that. This is mixed media paper by Ranger and I'm going to start by doing some stamping. The technique we are going for is emboss resist, so I'm using a text stamp and I'm going to stamp randomly on my background using embossing ink so that I can apply then white embossing powder. Notice that I'm stamping using my fingers. I don't even bother to use a stamping block or a stamping platform. If you do have imperfections on this layer, it's perfectly fine. Actually, we don't need anything perfect on the background. This ensures that our background stays quite organic and it's not going to draw the eye and steal the thunder of the focal point. After applying my white embossing powder, I'm going to use my heat gun and heat set it. You can't really tell what I'm doing here since it is almost white on white. However, once I apply color on top, you will see that it's going to appear magically. I'm going for a project that has really vibrant colors today. That's why I chose to go with Dylusion sprays. These are really vibrant. If you want a more muted effect, you can use similar colors, but using your Distress Oxide sprays. The colors I'm using here are London Blue, one of my favorite blue colors from the Dylusions collection. The purple one is called Crushed Grape, and then of course I had to add just a touch of vibrant turquoise. I'm going to use my heat gun to make sure that this is completely dry. And you can see here one of the advantages of working on loose papers. You don't make a mess inside the book, and even if something bleeds at the back of your paper, it's not an issue. And of course, if you don't like what you have created, try again. It's just paper. I know that the biggest fear of beginners in art journaling is doing something inside the pages of a book that they don't like at the end. So just work on loose papers. So here I'm using a star stencil. This is one by Holtz, and I spray all over it with water. This water is going to react with dilution inks underneath and it's going to give a different effect. It's the ghosting technique where we lift some color from the background just by using water, and you can do the exact same technique either with dilution sprays like I'm doing today, or with Distress Oxide sprays, or even with Distress stains. Now again I'm using the same stamp that I used for the background, but this time I'm stamping all over the background with black Archival ink, just adding some extra visual texture on my background. I'm using another stamp here just to introduce some circles on my background. All the stamps that I'm using today are from the Holtz The Professor stamp set. And here is a tip: if you did go with lighter colors for your background and you don't want that black stamping standing too much back there, you can always go with tone on tone. Just choose an ink pad which is slightly darker than the colors that you have already there. Now here I'm just adding a bit of water, which again is going to lift some color and create a lovely ghosting effect. And let's work on the focal point. This gorgeous moon comes from a stamp set by Simon Says Stamp. I am stamping that with black Archival ink since it is important for me for that ink to be permanent, so that I can now go ahead and add color on my moon by using again Dylusion sprays. You will see that that ink doesn't smudge or smear at all. That bright yellow is lemon zest, and to add shading I'm only spraying a couple of times with an orange spray, and now I'm going to take my time and do some fuzzy cutting. Of course, there are so many different ways that you can color your focal points. I absolutely love sprays, however, because look at those shadows on the moon with no effort at all. If I had to do that with my alcohol markers, it would take me forever. Now here I'm just using a blending tool and Black Soot Distress ink. I'm going all around the page. That's a step I usually do on my projects. I like to have a darker border all around. I feel like it makes the colors of my actual project look brighter, and a frame always makes a project look more finished. Now I'm going to use a cloth over those embossed images so that I can clean them up I'm also using my blending tool to ink up the edges. This is going to disguise any imperfections on fuzzy cutting. You can do that with a black marker if you prefer. And it's finally time to stick my focal point on my background. I went with white glue. You can use a glue stick, you can use your matte medium. Just keep in mind you don't want to be messy with the glue at this stage, since the background does react with any wet medium that you add on top. Again, by using the same stamp, I'm going to do some stamping on my moon, and this time I'm not using black because I don't want to overwhelm the moon with stamping. So I went with Wild Honey Archival ink for a tone-on-tone look. And it's time to have some fun with doodling. Here I'm using my white gel pen. I'm going to color in some of those designs around the moon, as well as adding some highlights on top of my cutout. One of the most common questions that I get is if I have everything planned from the beginning. And the answer is no, I go with the flow. For example, here I knew that I wanted to create that kind of a background with a really vibrant moon on top. However, this is where I decided that I wanted to dress up my moon somehow, and that's why I'm going to add a little flower. I used dies from Baby's Butterflies die set. I die cut a flower that comes with two parts, as well as a few leaves, and I'm going to color in with Distress Oxide. You can definitely use sprays if you like, or whatever other coloring medium. I don't want to overwhelm that flower with color, and I'm going with purple just because I already have purple on my background, so everything is going to come together nicely. The same blending technique, and I did add some color on my leaves, and now it's time to stick them on top of the moon. And you see, the moment that you dress up that moon with the flower and the leaves, it becomes more magical and whimsical somehow. Of course, you can go ahead and create a bigger cluster of flowers if you like, or even add another cluster of flowers on another corner of your page. You can never stop with little details. However, I wanted to keep this quite simple in composition, so I'm going to stop with dressing up with flowers here. My focal point does have a black line all around from stamping, and that's why I want to add some black details around my die cuts as well. These are little details that bring all the elements that you add on a page together. I did add some highlights with my gel pen. And again, I don't have a plan on my mind, so here I feel like there is something missing. So I thought if I had some white splashes all over the place, they are going to look like stars. And as much as I love white splashes, and that's a step that I would have done either way, I still feel like there is something missing. And this is where it struck me that I don't have stars. That's why I'm going to use one more stamp from the same stamp set as the moon. Another way to go is to use the stencil. Use gold paste over it, or even white paste, which will add interest as well as texture and dimension on your project. However, I decided to use the exact same technique that I did for the moon, so that everything matches nicely together, the stars and the moon. And I'm just stamping on a scrap piece of paper. I went with 3 stars, since odd numbers are always great in art, and I'm going to fuzzy cut them so that I can stick them on my project. And again, I will add some highlights with my white gel pen. On my art journal projects, I always like to add a motivational quote. This time I went with a chipboard quote from Tim Holtz that says, "Shine brightly." And now all that's left to do is to stick this page inside my art journal. And that was the project for today, using this gorgeous moon as my focal point. Here are some close-up photos where you can see the details better. I hope that you had fun as we played with all those different mixed media techniques. Thank you all so much for joining me, and I'll see you all next time.